Yes, I remember where I was when they turned Gmail blue. It was a cold day, a cold Sunday to be precise. I was sitting at home enjoying a nice inbox browse, and suddenly, so many hues, so many blue hues. Many say that was when it started. The Great War. The Great War, yes. Simpler times before then. But what am I? But an old man complaining about technology again. What's this? Who's there? Hello? Hello? Oh! That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we're going to tackle the beast himself and do a cheeky little redesign of Gmail. Now, this has been going around the internet a lot, this most recent redesign, and everyone likes to just totally dump on Google all the time. Mostly because, you know, they're an industry giant, they can take it. But although there is a lot of blues here, and there's a couple of things that I would personally change about the design, I just want to underscore this by saying that the UX of Gmail is really damn good. I mean, they've been the leading email provider for almost 3 decades? Not really sure when they launched, but by now they have a pretty good understanding on what works and what doesn't, and they've designed a really damn good email client. So this today is really just going to be kind of an experimental redesign of the aesthetic to suit my personal taste, to see if we can just make something fun. Now, this is a personal weakness of mine. I'm actually not very good at doing strict visual design, but it's going to be a fun little experiment, and hopefully we can get rid of a lot of those damn blue hues. So anyway, here we are in Figma, and as you can see here, we've got their basic brand guidelines, a couple of blacks, a couple of grays, and we've got those, we've got 3 of the 6 blues that I was able to find on the page, and then a simple green and red accent. And what I want to do here is I want to challenge myself to stay as true to these brand guidelines as possible. Sometimes if you change the core pillars of the brand, it's actually a lot easier to redesign something. You know, if someone's using Helvetica or some really, really saturated colors, oftentimes that's a big problem, right? But I'm gonna challenge myself to use these blues as best as I can. And in terms of the typography, they're using a custom font called Google Sans, which I don't have access to. Maybe one of you do, but I'm using a close relative, Montserrat, to bang out the headers on the site. And then, as always, we have got our reference image with a critique. Like I said, not very much to critique here. It's honestly, like, the main thing is there's just lots of different shades of blue, and it's a bit of a meme amongst designers, but the average user doesn't care about this. And the navigation is also quite involved. Over here on the left, it's like a primary, secondary, and then almost tertiary navigation with the controls at the top. So I'm going to try and change this a little bit. There's lots of unintuitive iconography throughout the experience too. These are icons whose functions you would learn over time, but new users are going to kind of struggle to pick that up. So I'm going to try to avoid doing any sort of like isolated icons where I can. And we're going to really, really simplify the user stories as well. Of course, as a user, I want to view all my email. I want to be able to send an email to all my contacts, perform actions on each email, categorize my emails so they're easier to navigate in the future, and then, of course, switch between my various Gmail accounts. Lots of people have lots of different accounts. So I have got my delicious popcorners here, the salty and sweetie version, please sponsor me, and a delicious creamy French vanilla coffee. So I'm just going to get stuck right into it, and I'll see you guys in just a moment. Can't stress how important it is, especially for really complicated UIs like this, to start out with just some really low fidelity content boxes. Just figure out where things are gonna go and then solve all those little problems individually. For this project, I'm of course using the Material UI Icons plugin for Figma, and I've actually gone ahead and taken a whole bunch of email-y icons and put them into a custom component so that I can just swap instances on the fly in these text links. It's a super convenient way of working with iconography. I really recommend you do it for your projects. Here I'm separating the more control because although it's similar to the other links, it's very meaningfully different from the rest of them, so it needs to have a little bit of distinction. And I know this really just kind of looks like how Gmail does today. At least the information architecture is the same, but for the sake of completeness, I wanted to redesign this as well and just add a little bit more polish. So if you would bear with me, things get a little more spicy in a bit. Here I'm trying to make the filter icon a little bit clearer. In the current Gmail, it's just the icon, and although people would learn the function over time, for new users it might be a little frustrating, so adding a little bit of text there doesn't really impinge too much on the design, but increases the clarity significantly. And here we go with some of the more big boy changes to the UX. I've taken the apps that were previously placed over to the left on the interface and floated them way up to the top of the interface. This felt like a more appropriate place to switch between which app you were using, and in the existing interface, it just seemed kind of like a half measure that they had included that secondary navigation, but then pushed it way off to the left, probably because they were afraid of, disrupting the primary user experience, but it just, I don't know, it feels like if you're gonna go with a multi-app experience, you need to fully embrace it and just kind of make it part of the flow straight from the get-go. So that's what I'm experimenting with here. There's really nothing special about this user menu here, except the fact that I've moved a lot of the controls down to the main context of the application that you're in. So instead of having settings next to the account menu where you would think you were changing account settings, they now live in context inside Gmail itself, because when you do click that button, you're allowed to configure Gmail. Like I said, Gmail's got about 20 years of user research on me, so I wanted to be very light-handed in my changes, particularly in the email interface here, which you're seeing me essentially copy directly from Gmail. And mostly to balance out the visual weight, of the table header, I'm adding in column headers here to the left. We had a lot of controls on the right, but it was oddly blank on the left. Felt a little unbalanced, so just pop them in there. And finally, since I'm kind of going all in with this multi-application type UX, I figured it made sense to just bite the bullet and change the name of the entire experience to Google Workspace. That's the name of their suite of tools, so it made sense to name it that here. All right, there we go. Like I said at the start, kind of just a reimagined experience. There's nothing like cripplingly bad about the existing Gmail UI. But something important that I wanted to call out is just, first of all, renaming this entire, I guess, flow to Google Workspace. I think semantically will make more sense. Like, obviously right now, Google can't just do that because they have individually contained applications that people use sparingly. No one really uses the full suite unless you're a business owner that relies on Google Workspace. But semantically, it makes more sense to call what we are now looking at Google Workspace. And I think moving all the applications to the header like this is a bold decision, a bold design decision. It's kind of very committing, right? You're forcing people to take on all the applications as kind of the main navigation, which is not really ideal. But the main problem with the way they implemented the navigation today is that it's kind of like just 1 foot in the boat and 1 foot back on land, where the navigation is still in the experience, distracting users, but it's pushed off to the side with a hope that you might not be that distracted. So I think that at some point it's going to end up at the top here, and from a user perspective, it does make a little more sense. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you have anything else you'd like me to redesign, please let me know in a comment. And if any of you do happen to work at Google, you're welcome. That'll be $2 million. You can find my Venmo in the video description.